What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday to everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying safe, healthy. If you had to take a COVID test, hopefully you have tested negative. If you did test positive, I hope you have a full and speedy recovery with no long-term issues. It is time now for the Thursday edition of the Pandemic Update for Thursday, January 11th, 2024. Before we start today, a couple things. Number one, it's a busy news day and we do have quite a bit of data to take a look at. Number two, if you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button down below and hit the thumbs up button if you like what you see here. I promise to help keep you safe through COVID and any other virus. And third, I gotta make a mention to something I saw on TV last night. You might have seen about this now because it has made its rounds on Twitter today. Chris Como, who does a show on News Nation, he also has a podcast called the Como Project. Well, he interviewed Dr. Deborah Birx last night, and the topic was none other than COVID, and they said some things I have never seen said before on TV, which finally, it's about time that the door was blown wide open. You could clearly see, clear as day, that Dr. Deborah Birx was silenced back in 2020 at the start of the pandemic. The comparison to COVID to HIV was made. I'm not going to get into that here on the channel, but the point is they talked about long COVID. They talked about how it can happen from mild cases and just, with minor cases, how it can lead on to a whole array of things. She also talked about how the virus can live inside of you. Yes, thank you. Finally, the things that needed to be said were said live on TV. It's about time someone said that. You could actually search here on YouTube. Go to News Nation's page. You can probably see, I know you can see it because I saw it, I watched it again. I had to see it a second time because I was just amazed at what was said. But you can search here on YouTube and find the full interview if you want to. And you can also go on Twitter. It's been all over Twitter. Type in Dr. Deborah Birx or Chris Como. It's bound to come up. All right, starting off with news today. A worker at an Olive Garden just across the river from where I live here in New Jersey, Olive Garden in Deptford, New Jersey, had hepatitis A, health officials say. And remember, we talk about hepatitis A in the sense that we do find detections of it in various different wastewater sites around the country. So, not surprising, but hey, it's something to talk about. Deptford, New Jersey, WPVI, a food handler who worked at an Olive Garden restaurant in Deptford, New Jersey last month, has tested positive for hepatitis A, Gloucester County health officials said Thursday. The employee worked at the store on December 26, 2023 through December 30th, 2023, officials said. So maybe you did takeout. Maybe you live in New Jersey and you did some takeout from that Olive Garden. Be mindful. They had a hepatitis A inspection and a reinspection, infection, I should say, but a reinspection on Wednesday, meaning yesterday, also did result in a satisfactory rating. All right, moving on to this. Nearly 10,000 died from COVID-19 last month, fueled by holiday gatherings and new variants, the WHO says. That's still far too many deaths, and we know deaths are undercounted in many different countries, even including probably here in the United States, so the real number was likely much higher. And it is unacceptable to have that many deaths still. And look at this here. Although 10,000 deaths a month is far less than the peak of the pandemic, this level of preventable deaths is not acceptable, the World Health Organization Director General told reporters from its headquarters in Geneva. So yeah, that's not a good thing, and they're acknowledging it. Maybe they ought to do something about it. Is it dangerous to keep getting COVID-19? Of course it is. It's reinfection can result in more disease. Getting COVID-19 today, don't pay attention to some of what it says here, but we are going to read it. Getting COVID-19 today is much less scary and more common than it was 3 years ago. By now, many people have had it not just once, but 2, 3, or even more times. Yes, a lot of people have had it more times. And those who have had it multiple times, the ones that I have talked to, tell me that second and third go around was more difficult and challenging for them. And this is actually coming from Time magazine. And look what it says here. We're not going to read this whole thing. We got a lot to get through today. But I want you to see this. It says a higher risk of long COVID. So Time magazine is acknowledging that there could be a higher risk. COVID-19 may alter the immune response. We've talked about this several times. COVID can impact the immune system. So that is something to take note of. All right, let's switch gears to yet another virus. Potential tuberculosis case under investigation at Boise State University. Just reading the headline here, but there is a potential tuberculosis case exposure back during this fall semester of 2023. They're likely probably starting their winter semester now, but that is something to keep mind of. And again, we're just going to read a headline on this one as well. Worse lung damage, news research shows. One of JN.1's ancestors was the focus of two recent studies, and, well, guess what? We know if this was happening with one of its ancestors from our previous variant, now that we know JN.1 is a more fit, possibly a stronger variant, that's alarming. If the previous variants can do it, what can JN.1 do? Well, there'll be studies that will likely come out as time goes on. It's still early in the ball game with the JN.1 variant. All right, moving on to this. We're going to do this every day. I'm going to put a refresh on here. Maybe. There's a tweet. Nope, not finding any tweets. Let's try for replies. Maybe there's a reply. Nope, no replies. What are we looking at here? Mandy K. Cohen. She's the director of the CDC. And yet again, after everything I just told you about tuberculosis exposure, some new studies of COVID, hepatitis exposure, all these, terrible things going on, not a peep out of your CDC director for here in the United States. Unacceptable and unbelievable. Second biggest wave of the entire pandemic is ongoing right now. All right, taking a look at today's air qualities. Some pretty poor air qualities going on across the Great Lakes right now. Maybe that's part of fireplaces. We know the West Coast is because of fireplaces. Not the best air quality today along the I-95 corridor in the Northeast, but not the worst either. But hey, it's something I like to keep a close eye on. All right, let's take a look at the latest wastewater here from BioBot. You can see this week the Northeast did go up even higher back on January 6th, but it's slowing down, and it didn't rise in any of the other regions right now, but the Northeast is still something we have to watch. More on the Northeast when we take a look at some local data in just a bit. All this other data does not update from the CDC. We do want to take a look at Walgreens for this week, and I can show you that the Walgreens national positivity is 28.1%. Let's take a look at a couple other states while we're at it. Kansas City, 32.5% positivity. Nebraska is at 34% positivity. Georgia is at 26.3% positivity. How about North Carolina? Can we look at North Carolina? North Carolina, 22.6% positivity. That's up a little bit. How about Texas? Texas is at 26.3% this week. Idaho, the positivity rate this week is at 27.1%. And in Montana, the positivity rate this week is 20%. And what the heck? Let's take a look at California as well. 29.4% this week. All right, moving on from Walgreens. We could go on through every state, but we're not going to. Again, a lot of this data from the CDC here, I shouldn't say it doesn't update, but it won't update until tomorrow. Taking a look here, but you can see deaths, they continue to rise in Massachusetts, New Jersey, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Virginia, Maryland. This does not say Texas, but it should say Texas, and I'll explain why when we get to Texas in just a couple of moments. This will update tomorrow from the CDC. You can see here, growing status, likely growing status for COVID. It's pretty much most states. And you can see here, growing status is in most states for influenza as well. Taking a look here, 34,798 people in the hospital for COVID. That will also update tomorrow. What we did get an update today, is we get this every day, is Philadelphia Fire Department updated the calls. And the one we take a look at is EMS calls. 775 EMS calls yesterday. Let's do a live look in at the Philadelphia suburbs to see what's going on. You can see here, Montgomery County, not that busy. We're a little late today with today's update. It's after 5:45. It's 5:47 in the evening right now, so that is normal. But I'm seeing a couple of them are from vehicle accidents. So if you took that away, it would actually be a slow period right now. And taking a look at Chester County, Pennsylvania, you can see, yes, there are some calls, heart problems, sick persons. I actually see 3 heart problems calls. So sometimes it's not the amount of calls, it's the severity of the calls that are out there. New Jersey, I am officially saying they're just bouncing around on the top now. They're not rising any further. 69 out of 70 hospitals reported. They have likely peaked, but they're not in a rapid dropping state just yet. They're still bouncing around on the top. 1,365 people in the hospital, 58 people in a ventilator, 190 people now in the ICU, and discharge volume. Yep, that's still pretty high. It's going to remain high. 225 discharges reported. New York State, actually some bad news today. Yes, bad news. And that news is not on the hospitalization front, but on the case front. That's quite a few cases. 6,696 cases still. And if you look at this chart really closely, pretty sure we can zoom this chart in. Let's do that. If we take a look at this chart here, if you look really close, you can see today they were going down. I mean, they were steadily dropping. Then all of a sudden today, oh, hello, it decided to go back up again. I think it could just be a one-day thing. Maybe there was some lag from the other days, but I don't know. It's something we're going to have to pay attention to. The fact that they went back up could be coming from people back in the office, people back in school. This would be called what's known as a double peak, where they may have peaked and then they're going to go back to that again, and then they'll peak again, and then they will drop. And that could be what's happening. Will that be reflected in the hospitals? Hard to say. I would think that maybe from here on the hospitals will drop, but hey, who knows? That was a big increase in cases, and as we know, that number is likely way undercounted. Wastewater would suggest that there are multiple times more cases than what are being seen. Hospitalizations, they did drop again today in New York State. 3,137 people in the hospital. And let's take a look at New York City. It is important that we also look at New York City. Forgive me here, this does have to refresh. That's how it works. Every time you change here or don't look at it for a while, it refreshes itself. Taking a look at New York City, you can see here that there are 1,290 people in the hospital. Taking a look at Texas, Texas did finally update. And the cases in Texas, they went higher. 17,173 people versus 16,427. That is up by 746. Now taking a look at Texas hospitalizations, yeah, they went up pretty significantly. They increased by another 205 to 1,950 versus 1,745. Now remember, I was saying CDC should probably soon reflect an increase in deaths in Texas. That's true. Here's why. Deaths this week were actually up by 43 versus 40. So, yep, deaths are starting to rise again in Texas. All right, let's take a look at Chicago, and I do have to refresh this to make sure it is up to date because they usually do update on Thursdays. And yes, they did, and hospitalizations went higher in Chicago. 37 is the new number. Hospital beds in use is up by 4.4%. Emergency room visits for COVID, remember this is for COVID now, is up by 2.9%. Laboratory confirmed cases, actually down a little bit, 225. Deaths are down ever so slightly, and vaccinations were actually showing a green light here for down. Green's usually a good thing, but it's 7,570 people took a vaccine the past week. All right, some bad news out of Colorado. We expected this. Colorado, while everywhere else was rising, was dropping. Colorado will probably be one of the last states. We've seen this before where Colorado goes off into its own little world, and that's happening right now. Hospitalizations in Colorado are now up to 246. That's up from 213, so that's a decent sized increase. But taking a look here, it does say emergency department visits diagnosed with COVID is actually down a little bit. Cases are down slightly. They reported 3,077 new cases in the past week. We also now want to take a look at the state of Washington to see what's going on there. And this updated on Wednesday, January 10th. COVID emergency department visits remain flat. Influenza dropped 21%. RSV dropped 27%. Let's forget about those numbers for a second. Let's just come right on over to this one right here. The number of people in the ICU for COVID, that's now up to 43. So that's an increase. Influenza is at 22. And you can see here, it did go up. COVID went up by 6. Influenza up by 11. Yeah, influenza. up by the increase was bigger than COVID. It's not a good year for influenza in many states right now. Massachusetts, we did get an update there today, and the number of people that visited an emergency department for respiratory disease is at 17.2%. Influenza severity, it's high. COVID emergency department visits level is moderate at this time. Admissions level is also medium at this time. And you can see here on their scale, the high, which is for influenza, there's only one step higher, and that's very high. Hopefully they do not get to that level this season, but we will have to continue to watch. California, we should hopefully get an update tomorrow, but we probably won't get that into the pandemic update till Saturday because tomorrow is going to be one of those out in the wild updates. Looking to see if we had an update from LA. I'm not seeing much of anything. This is still showing from the end of last year, so LA, come on, update your data. LA meaning Los Angeles, not Louisiana. Tomorrow we will also get influenza update. Again, I'll probably incorporate that into the Saturday update because like I said, tomorrow is going to be an out in the wild update as I'm going to be busy with work tomorrow. So at some point we'll stop. I'll have my notes like I normally do. And yep, that does it for today's pandemic update. Boy, that was a lot of news and data, wasn't it? Hope you learned something today. Hope you learned that, hey, maybe he's onto something here. Maybe there are a lot of virus cases going around still, and maybe I need to start wearing a mask again. Go right ahead. It's really easy to do, and it's safe, and it's effective. Alrighty? If you learned anything, give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. If you know anyone that needs to see this content, by all means share this with them. I will see you all again next time, which will be tomorrow. Until I see you again tomorrow, stay safe, everyone. Have a fantastic Thursday evening. And thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.